Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond, Green Chambers in London. It's my privilege to actually review a book and introduce it to you if you haven't seen it before. It's a book from Elgar Publishing. They're an independent publishers. And this is part of the Elgar Financial Law and Practice series of books, and it's called Mis-Selling Financial Services, now in a second edition. I did review the first edition some years ago now. The current edition is now written by Jonathan Kirk, King's Counsel, Thomas Samuels and Lee Finch. I think it's an important book for financial services generally, and that particular area of civil law, which is very specialised, but it's actually quite an important area. We're dealing with money, of course, and we're dealing with a lot of important basic legal issues. The title I've given this is an in-depth analysis for litigants involved in the mis-sale of financial products and services. I'd like to think it wasn't too prevalent, but it is, and that's one of the reasons why we have a problem with this area, because there have been a lot of issues. A lot of people have got away with things that they shouldn't have got away with. What we've now got is we've got a statement of the law in terms of what sort of due diligence we should be looking at in the future. Let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a hardback, very much the standard house style of Elgar. They are a superb private publishing firm. I've been very grateful to review works they've published for the last decade or so, and I'm grateful to them for sending me this one. You can see the index of the back is by paragraph numbers. It's very much the standard house style of the firm. There we go, that's the beginning. It's only a small index, and you can see just at the back of it, this is chapter 9. It's paragraph numbering at the sides. You've got footnoting, which you don't need to pay too much attention to depending on what you're looking for. You've then got in the beginning of it, there is the front page, and you can see from there it's also got a list of the various publications from Elgar Financial Law and Practice, and of course you can see that Mr. Kirk comes from Gough Square with his colleague Lee Finch, and Mr. Samuels is from Henderson Chambers. We've then got a content section with the 9 chapters. The 9 chapters are an introduction, mis-selling claims, credit, mortgages, insurance, investments, collective investment schemes, unfair contract terms, and the Financial Ombudsman Service. The first edition was published a while back now. I haven't got a date for it. But this edition came out in 2022, and I'm actually reviewing it at the beginning of 2023. This is an extended or an expanded contents section, so you should be able to navigate your way through the book. It's only 4 pages. You should be able to navigate your way through the book by looking at the extended contents and of course the index at the back. And then we get from there, we get the usual suspects, the table of cases, and then after the table of cases, legislation. And then after legislation, we do have, after legislation, we have EU and international instruments at the back, which we shouldn't forget about, of course. Then we get to the structure of the book, and you can see it's nicely set out. You have the chapter, then you have a short index to tell you what is actually in the book. And then it says here, what is mis-selling? The value of your instrument may go down as well as up is a phrase with which every reader of this work will be familiar. It appears in all kinds of documents provided by banks, independent financial advisors, insurers and other similar organisations. This reasonably well-informed and circumspect average person understands that many financial transactions carry with them a degree of risk. Nonetheless, most mis-selling claims are about just that, a financial product which has either dropped or not risen in value. And that's the starting point. And I think that's quite important as a statement. And obviously running through you can see the very substantial detail in a book which runs to 350 odd pages, under 400 anyway. Now what do I say in general about in this short review about the work? I'm very pleased with it. It's an important book. The new second edition then of Mis-Selling Financial Services remains a highly practical guide for us. looking at litigating claims arising from the mis-sale of financial products and services, and of course the problems that have arisen. And of course the authors, as I mentioned before, are Jonathan Kirk, King's Counsel, Thomas Samuels and Lee Finch, all barristers. Edward Elgar are well known and are to be congratulated for producing this sort of publication. It makes our lives a lot easier and I'm very grateful to them. This particular title covers the history of mis-selling litigation itself, and it provides an updated overview of the regulatory landscape that we have today. And the title explores how such claims are formulated, as well as offering a thorough review of the key issues which are involved. And for the new edition for 2022, the revised chapters which the authors have painstakingly gone through present an in-depth analysis of the financial products which most commonly form the subject of such claims, from credit to collective investment schemes. So it's a fairly wide range. And for the second edition, the key features cover updated new chapters on the Ombudsman Service, the FOS, Financial Ombudsman Service, and unfair terms. And I'll just say about the Ombudsman that I have a lot of misgivings about the role of the Ombudsman. We inherited this concept in the 1960s from Scandinavia, and I'm still a little bit unhappy about the way they operate, frankly, because either they should have teeth and they should be able to really go to a particular problem, but at the moment they generally fall between two stools. And I'm afraid that's a political comment rather than a legal one, but it's something that doesn't make me too happy, because I've done a number of cases involving results of the Ombudsman Service in whatever area it is, and they are lacking. And I say it's probably partly to do with probably their terms of reference and the narrowing of their terms of reference, and also the fact that they, at the end of the day, they don't have the powers perhaps and the finances they should have to do what they really are probably expected to do in the 21st century. But that's for another day and another book. What we have here are new features as well, an explanation of the key issues and considerations concerning mis-selling litigation. And what the authors have done is they've given us a clear and concise analysis on the law relating to the mis-selling of regulated financial services, an important area, I accept. And this is the products themselves we're talking about. And you've also got an overview of both the United Kingdom and the European regulatory frameworks governing the sale of financial products. Because we are a global community, whether some people like it or not, that's the reality of where we are today in 2023. And so it's important to know how the regulatory process works. And there's a particular focus on the 5 key product types that we're talking about here, which is credit, mortgages, investments, insurance and collective investment schemes. And I think that in itself is, depending on what you're looking for as say a member of council trying to do a bit of legal research, this is the sort of area that comes up with some very useful advice. Let me conclude by saying this, that the 3 authors, Kirk, Samuels and Finch, consider key legal and practical concepts and issues throughout the book. It's a title which is an essential read in our view for practitioners and in-house counsel working in the financial services industry. They've got away with a lot in my view in the past. They are very heavily protected, and rightly too in many ways, but however I think it's important that we know exactly where we stand, especially if I'm advising a client who seems to, I use the word, be a victim of something that's happened that shouldn't have happened. And that really is why members of the bar will find this book, I think, quite helpful. And of course, also, as a parting point, academics who are researching within the fields of financial services law or consumer protection, I think will also find this to be an informative text for them. Because Edward Elgar are actually quite heavy on the academic side, but they do produce some excellent practice books as well. The date of publication of the new hardback is the 5th of November 2022. Let's just have one last look at it. There it is, the front, the spine and the back, with a blurb on the back. I've borrowed some of the blurb on the back purely for our review. Just opening it in the middle. Let's find something. Mortgages. Here we go. I would pick mortgages, wouldn't I, at a time when we have what is called the cost of living crisis, which is not really that. It's far bigger than that. It's actually a problem. But mortgages are very important because many people have mortgages today. See the structure again of the book. You've got the paragraph numbering, nice little index there, a little bit of footnoting on the sides. But buying a property, of course, as it says here, is often the largest purchase of an individual's life. But it is rare for the individual to be able to fund the purchase without borrowing some of all the required funds for a mortgage. That's really why it's important, because we are a property owning democracy, and obviously with interest rates changing and all sorts of difficulties after such a long period, at least one generation, of steady, very low inflation, we are looking at changes. And that could have an effect, of course, on the way in which financial services are being actually marketed. Thank you to everybody, and I'd like to thank Edward Elgar very much for inviting me to review this book. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.